In recent times, Nigeria has been facing a lot of crises, and one of those crises is the recent Lekki building collapse, where a lot of people lost their lives, though there were rescue missions here and there, and some people were rescued alive, but the casualty has risen day by day. So on the show this morning, we want to look at a very, very salient topic, and we will look at how to cope that incident of building collapse in the society. On the show this morning, we have two gentlemen in the studio. Architect Matami Olubodo, who is the head of Architecture Department, Federal Polytechnic in Laro, and the former secretary, Nigerian Institute of Architects in Ogun State. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
And we have engineer Adenuga Ismail Adetunju. He is the vice chairman of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Abeokuta branch. You're welcome to the program.
Good morning, ma, and good morning, viewers.
The topic, once again, is building collapse, finding a way out. So let's keep the program rolling. Let me start with engineer Adenuga. Building collapse, how do we classify it? Is it under natural disaster or man-made disaster?
Now, building collapse, it can be natural and it can be artificial. But most that we've been experiencing in recent times are man-made. They are artificial because when you talk of building, the processes that involve in constructing a building, it involves a lot of process. It's not like building a bungalow that an artisan can easily build and control and supervise himself. So, but if the building is moving from a bungalow to a story building, two-story building, and like that to a RS building, there is a lot of processes that are involved, right from the design, from the architectural design. After the architectural, we have the structural design. And if all these things are not properly done, there may be problem, because we have a lot of things that constitute to man-made problem, going from the materials, from the faulty design. At times we do have faulty design, and we have faulty construction. During construction phase, we might have faulty construction. And there is a lot of more. We have substandard materials as well. All these things, that was why I said it can be man-made and it can be natural. But if you are talking about natural, the structural members are going to be affected because we have, take for instance, when we have earthquake, so you can't control that. If you have flooding in some area, you can't control that, because by the time the flooding, the water started eroding, wearing away the soil gradually and causing a gully propagation in your environment. So the house might cave in along the line if the protective measure is not put in place on time. So that's why I say it can be natural and it can be artificial. Those are the natural form, like the flooding, the earthquake, and the likes. Those are the natural causes of building collapse. But mostly, we are the cause of the building collapse in this one, because most of the contractors, they don't want to pay the engineers or the builders to supervise their work for them. And this is a big problem. They prefer to spend less on artisan or ordinary bricklayers that will do the construction for them. And this is when we say a professional will always be a professional.
Okay, engineer, before we go deep, let architect Olubodo give us his own opinion about what I've asked. Is it natural or man-made?
Thank you very much. Building collapse, just like the engineer said, could be natural and could be man-made. But majority of the issues we've had in recent years have been man-made.
In Nigeria?
In Nigeria, yes, have been man-made. From design stages to the execution stage. Like from design, if we have a faulty design, definitely it's like we have designed a disaster in the making. Like when you have faulty design. But when we use substandard materials, then we are calling for a collapse in the future, in the nearest future. At the same time, if you look at our construction process, the process of our construction, most of our clients, the populace, they like to be penny wise, pounds foolish. They don't want to play professionals. They want to do things in their own way, to their own little understanding. But they have forgotten that they do forget that professionals are trained in this area of business, and they know the integrity of this job. But because they don't want to pay for services, people prefer to spend millions in buying materials, in buying building materials, but to pay professionals, they don't want to. So at the end of the day, they call for collapse in the nearest future.
Okay.
Well, Engineer Adinuga, well, according to Nairametrics, between 2011 and 2019, over 84 buildings collapsed across Nigeria, and 21 out of the 84 occurred outside Lagos. Yes, though Lagos State has been demolishing scores of distressed buildings, we must say, but when this happens, we definitely look towards the direction. We seek, expert opinions, NSC, Nigerian Society of Engineers, and we ask clarifications. What really went wrong? The last building collapse, at Ikoyi, of course, talking points is a panel has been set up basically. But from your own start point, what do you think could have gone wrong?
Thank you very much. For the recent building that just collapsed in Lagos, if you've been listening to the news, there was an approval given by the building authority in Lagos State for the owner of that building. The approval given to him was to construct a 15-story building, and he went on to take it to 21-story building. So, and the engineer that was handling the construction, the engineer that was handling the construction initially, he sent a letter out that he has stopped when he found out that what they want to do, he is not going to be part of it. That is taking the building beyond the approved limit, which is very, very wrong. Then again, aside that, we also have to look at the authority. The government still also has some sort of thing in this, because when you give an approval of a 15-story building to someone and the person is building above that limit, I believe there is a check and there are some building authority that's supposed to be managing or monitoring, because under the building production management, we have a department that will be inspection and monitoring, compliance and installation monitoring. They should be monitoring. So since they find out that this thing is going beyond it, that building has to be stopped. And I think the Lagos State government did it sometime when they gave the stop work order to the to the owner of that building, that they should stop working on that. So how the building now continue going, that is left for another topics. So a lot of things is involved. So we blame the government has their own, the contractor has their own, the owner of such building also has his own blame on it.
Well, architect, several factors have been fingered. Even a professional, that when it comes to building, especially skyscrapers, a number of professionals involved in that. We talk about architects, quantity surveyor, the civil engineers, the builders, and a whole lot. Town planner also at some point will also come into place. But the question is, most times I've also seen a situation where an architect would tell you, I can do the job of a quantity surveyor, or I can do the job of a civil engineer. It's not really clear cut. A surveyor would tell you, I can also draw a plan. I can design, a plan. So, is this also not? Is this not leading to mediocrity in this party? If we don't have, if the rules are not really defined, and if one professional is saying, I can do the work of another, a professional, how worrying is this?
It's a worrying situation, because though in the building industry, all professionals have a bit of a knowledge of all other allied professions, but are you licensed to practice another man's profession? As an architect now, well, if I see a structural drawing, well, I can understand, I can read and understand. Yes, if I see a bill of quantity prepared by a QS, I can read and understand. But am I licensed to do it? Your answer is no. The fact that you have a little knowledge does not mean you are a professional in that field. But you are trained to know a bit of this other area, so that when you come together as a team on a project, you have idea of what Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C is saying. But in your own way, your own line of profession is where you are really truly trained to practice. I cannot wake up one day and I say I want to design a structural drawing. It's not possible. Fine, I may understand it, but I'm not trained to do it. I'm not licensed to practice. If I do, I'm contravening the laws of the federation. I'm contravening the law of the laws of our profession. Because my profession only licensed to practice architecture. Now, if I practice engineering, if current catches me, I'm in trouble. If the engineer practices architecture, if Akon catches him, he's in trouble. So where you are not licensed to practice, don't bother going there, because you create problems for the society, create problems for the professions. But what we see today is that everybody wants to look for sharp corners to do what they are not trained to do or licensed to do, and at the end of the day, we get ourselves into trouble.
Okay, architect. Sorry. Okay, continue. I thought you're done with your submission.
Go on.
Okay, I wanted to ask, who supervises structural integrity? Because when you see a building on the floor, the materials coming down and everything is ruined, they start blaming structural integrity. Okay. Then who is to be blamed on structural integrity? Is it the government who is supposed to monitor every time, especially high-rising buildings? So who is to be blamed in structural integrity?
Thank you very much. See, the blame game goes in so many directions.
Okay.
For example, there's a government agency that's supposed to monitor what is going on different sites where they have given approval for buildings to be constructed. What are they doing? Like the engineer just said, the building in question now, the recent Ikoyi case, the building was approved for 15 floors. Somebody will have designed the pad foundation for 15 floors. Somebody will have designed the structures for 15 floors. The reinforcements, the concrete mix and things like that for 15 floors. Now, adding 6 extra floors is a disaster waiting to happen.
Okay, additional weight.
Yes, additional weight. You have not considered what happened to the foundation. The factors taken into consideration when designing the pad foundation was not considered. Now, the factors taken into consideration when the structures were being designed was not considered. Somebody just wake up one day and say, let me add more floors. It's a way, just like let's say you ask a 2-year-old baby to carry a bag of cement. How easy will that be? So we can blame the structural engineer, we can blame the monitoring agency, but in this present case, the engineers have resigned their being part of the job since 2020. And then the building continued. Why did they look for another set of engineers? The question is begging for answers. 2, the Lagos State government sealed that site. There was a fracas during that created the scene at that period, but the building continued. Who gave the order for the building to continue? So those are questions that are begging for answers.
Okay, engineer, in constructing at all, is environment should environment be considered? Because for the Ikoyi example now, the environment was a riverine area, and we know that in Lagos, in those areas, you do a lot of sand filling and all that before you can do the foundation at all. So in building something like a high-rising structures, should environment to be considered? Because we know that in that area, it was a riverine area, and even if the building didn't collapse at that time, it was even waiting for the rivers to come and overflow it. So environment in building, how well does it matter?
Environment in building is very, very critical, especially if it involves building on a large expanse of land, or when you want to build a skyscraper, for instance. Environment is very, very key, very, very key. There is what we call environmental impact assessment that needs to be carried out for such a building. And that environmental impact assessment is like a baseline studies. A baseline that will guide all the processes of that building construction. For the Ikoyi building, you know, in engineering, we have different type of foundation. You have like the civil engineer, take for instance, you have the geotechnical engineers. The geotechnical engineers are mainly trained to design foundation for a particular building.
For such area?
In any area.
Okay.
It depends on the soil.
Okay.
That's the properties of the soil in a particular area. Okay. That is what they will use in designing their foundation. Okay. Designing for the foundation of any structure they are doing. In such an area where we have a waterlog, we normally make use of pile foundation. And in piling, you go down, dig till you get to the stable, where the land is stable. It can be 50 meters, it can be 100 meters, it depends. So it is where the land is stable, that is where the foundation will start from. And they will now make use of...
What if you dig and you met water along the way?
No, if you met water, even after water, there is still a place. Like take for instance, when you are constructing bridges, it is water now. Or some engineers will have to dive inside to carry out some stairs. After the water, you will still see where the land is stable. Okay. Inside, it might be very, very deep. That is why you see bridges standing. And you see all those skyscrapers that was built inside water. That is why you see them standing. Okay. So that is the work of a geotechnical engineer. If it is where we have sand, for instance, like in most places where sand fill in Ajah side, you excavate the sand, you put your part footing or raft foundation. Raft foundation, we normally use raft in where we have swampy areas. Okay. So we have different type of foundation for different type of buildings. So for instance, if you want to build a skyscraper in an area where you don't have waterlog, so they have to, the geotechnical will have done a study. They will excavate to where they see that, okay, this land is very, very stable here.
Solid.
So that is where they will start their foundation from. So because it is the foundation that carries the weight of most building. Because by the time the structural engineers is designing for the building, he will be transferring the load right from the roof to the beam, from the beam to the column, from the column to the slab. From that, he will be transferring that load till it gets to the foundation. So it is that load the foundation engineer will now use to determine what type of foundation they are going to do. And he or she, the foundation engineer, will have carried out a study of the soil as well, because that is very, very critical. You have carried out the study of the soil so as to determine the right foundation to be used for that particular.
And do we do that in Nigeria?
No, we do that in Nigeria. We have foundation engineers, we have geotechnical engineers, we have a lot of them. We have some companies that are basically on foundation and geotechnical engineering. They are basically on foundation. If you want to do any structure, if you go to them, they are experts. We have them around the country. Because, take for example, like I want to add this. The civil engineers, we have different specialization. Okay. You have the environment and water engineers. You have highway. You have the structural engineer, and you have the geotechnical engineer. Each one of them has their role to play in their specific specialization. So, a structural engineer should not go and do the work of an environmental engineer. Likewise, an highway engineer shouldn't go and do the work of a structural engineer. Even if you want to do some, you invite. Take for example, if someone I don't have an idea of this, so it's better you call your colleague. You are a structural engineer. Please come and do this project, because so as not to create a problem in the nearest future.
But is that a situation? I mean, we talked about overlapping of roles, and you've detailed, the processes, quite, technical. So, is that how it is? How the processes are?
And in some, that is, I say yes and no, because in some instances, you see some people, they don't have the idea of that particular work. There was an instance, you see an estate surveyor taking the work of an architect, taking the work of an engineer. They will take everything, and it's the work of a structural engineer, they will take everything. They will have bill. So these are problems that needs to be tackled. So we need division of labor in this our society that we find ourselves. So, and it is the government that can help in ensuring this comes to be. So because an architect should do his part, the structural engineer should do his part, the we have mechanical part in building, the mechanical engineer should do his part. So, and the likes, everybody should play their specific roles when it comes to building. That, if it is a bungalow, a story building, that one is still easy for all the building professionals to handle. The architect, the civil engineer, anybody can still handle. That one is still easy once they design for you and you abide by that. But if it is more than a story building, all the professionals that are required should be fully involved, so that each person will carry out his own activities on that particular project. Because two heads are better than one. You bring all your head, you all join hands together to ensure the success of that particular project.
You said the onus lies on the government, but what about the professional bodies? Because all these, similar professions do have bodies.
Yes,
NSC,
yes.
for instance.
Yes,
what are their rules, in all of this?
NSC also has a role to play. Like we do have under the Council of Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, foreign, we have the Engineering Regulating Monitoring Team, ERM. Each state has ERM. So by the time you are moving now, you are moving around and you find out that something is faulty, they will make their recommendation, they will go and study that particular problem and they recommend and send to the appropriate quarter for further actions on it. So all the professionals do have, like you have said, do have a lot to play when these issues like this come up. And if you are going and you see something that is, how does this building or this road, what is causing this problem? So normally in NSC Abeokuta, we've done a series of that and recommend to the appropriate authority for further action. Such action have been taken into consideration whenever we see something like that. So we might be going and see that the approach to this bridge, the soil is being eroded. I could still recollect that of the Abeokuta bridge when the society found out that there was a problem there. They set up a team. So, and the team went there to study what the problem is, and they prepared their report and forward it. So things like that, the ERM normally does that with the Nigerian set of engineers in that axis in the states. So, and they do forward to the appropriate further for.
Okay, well, architects, I know we also have quacks, in all of these professions. So, how problematic is this? I mean, this issue of quackery. What are you also doing as professionals?
Thank you. This issue of quackery is a very serious problem in the society. But what ACON, the Architecture Regional Council of Nigeria, is doing as a profession is that for every building you design, that's what we call project registration number, ACON project registration number. That is a way you register that project, you submit the drawing to ACON, and they issue a certificate. That certificate is what we are supposed to take to the approval authorities for further actions. Buildings that don't have evidence of APRN, the project registration number, are not supposed to even be approved at all. But because many state governments are looking for IGR, they need IGR, so they take all drawings and approve. But if approval agencies take this action seriously, then all our buildings will be designed by registered architects. But this issue of calculation, you have draftsmen, you have allied professionals dipping their hands into architectural designs. And at the end of the day, you see that most of these buildings are poorly designed, badly designed. And then when it gets to construction, they construct whatever they like. And that is creating serious problems for us in the society. But if this issue of APRN is taken into consideration and all approval agencies get the support of their state governments in seeing that every project submitted for approval has APRN certificate, then it will sanitize the society in a long way.
Well, an independent panel has been set up and given 30 days to come up with findings. What are your expectations?
Well, we expect a thorough job because the people in that committee are very seasoned professionals, and we expect a thorough job.
Well,
same question.
Okay. We are expecting a thorough job because the Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute have been involved. They are in charge of all this. They are to carry out some tests, integrity tests, for instance, on the materials that were used at that particular site. So I believe they are going to do a very thorough job because the government is not going to fold its arms and be looking that they will be experiencing a lot of building collapse within their environment. So that was how I believe they will do a thorough job. Like during the Treasury Board meeting in Ogun, you can see the government, it sounded tough that anybody that compromise standard is going to be jailed. So that was what the government did. So the government cannot fold its arm and let its citizens be losing their lives and we're seeing building collapsing here and there. So I believe they are going to do a thorough job, very, very thorough job. So because like I do say, the building, a lot of things is involved. The substandard materials especially, we had a lot of problems when it comes to substandard materials. Look at the block, for instance, the block we normally use. You see the block makers, they will be molding blocks. How many did you make per bag? 45, 9 inches block. That is too much. Whereas the strength of a block itself should be between 1.8 and 2.1 Newton per millimeter square. Most of the blocks we are using, if you go and crush them, one won't meet that particular strength. And why? A lot is involved. You want to make more money. Two, the way these blocks are constructed is a serious problem. The mode of their curing. Ideally, if you mold block, they have to be cured under. We don't expect sun to dry the block instantly because that is the rate of dehydration will be very high, and it has to be a gradual process so that the block can attain its specific strength. Same to when you start a building, the building agencies have to be coming. Ogun State is trying in that direction now. You see the Ogun State Material Test Laboratory going out. Whenever you see them, if you start the foundation, you see them at the foundation, they will come and take some samples and go and analyze if it meets the requirement. By the time you get to the decking stage, they will come and take sample again. Look, they will test the reinforcement, cut part of the reinforcement, take sample of the concrete. They will go and test in their lab to see if it meets the required standard. So I believe that was why I said they are going to do a thorough job. The government are also trying to change the orientation of most of the professionals, their workers, the workforce that are into the construction industry and the likes. So, and I believe with time everything is going to change. That's why I said the committee that has been set up will do a thorough job, and they will recommend appropriately to the government.
Okay, architect, let's look at the builder's liability policy. I know that there's something like that in Nigeria. Are professionals working towards ensuring that this policy is implemented fully in Nigeria? Because okay, let me not preempt anyway. Is it working in Nigeria?
Well, I can't say it's working.
Okay.
But you see, most of our buildings, like I said earlier, clients prefer to be penny wise, pounds foolish. When it comes to paying for services or insurance or whatever, they try to shy away from that. But they can spend millions to buy building materials, to do other things. But when it comes to spending on what they build or what they cannot see, they wouldn't want to spend on it. So it's not really working here, except for few buildings, mostly government buildings. That's when you see it working.
Okay, so the private buildings, who should implement it? Because we are looking for a way forward now. This building shouldn't be falling, and people are dying and affecting them. For instance, the Ikoyi building, a lot of families they've been stopped there, trying to locate their family members who is still under the rubble. So it affects the economy. Those people are not going to work. Those surrounding environment are affected also. So who should implement it so that this kind of occurrence won't repeat itself?
The major problem we have here, we have in this part of the country or part of the world, is enforcement. We make laws, we put them black and white, yes, we see the laws there. But do we really enforce the laws? Most of the time we don't. See, there are agencies responsible for all this. But what do they do? Do they take actions? Most of the time they don't. And there are times when, even when they want to take actions, they might be stuck at one point or the other, probably because they see that the people handling this project are powerful people, they are untouchable. So they back out. But if we really want to achieve the best for this country, we have to allow professionals do their job, then allow government agencies do their proper job in terms of enforcement of laws, enforcement of policies on construction. That's what is.
All right, engineer, let's look at stages of inspection now, because I know that when a building is, especially a large building, when it is under construction, there are stages of inspection. You inspect at a point, the other point you go there and inspect. At what point can a building be pulled down if you see that this building is not really what you want? At what point? Is it at the foundation level, or even if it is finished?
Even if it is finished, the government can pull it down. If it is finished, the government can pull it down. But the inspection stage, firstly, it should start from the foundation. You know, the structural engineer, they will have done the structural design, and what is stipulated in the structural design should be followed to the letter. So you know the depth you are going with your foundation. By the time they start excavating for the trenches for foundation, there is a particular depth you have to go. The inspection should start from there. If the depth is not, if they didn't go to the required depth, they will insist, the government, the enforcement authority will insist they go to the required depth. So thereafter, it depends on the building. Their enforcement, by the time they start fixing in their return, they can come in as well and see for them, look at it, okay, is what you are doing, is it right or wrong? If it is wrong, they will have to remove all the reinforcement, put the required reinforcement. And if the government didn't see that, or the monitoring or regulatory authority didn't see that, till it gets to the second floor, and they now decide that, they now note that something is wrong with the building. The building will be put down right from the second story or the third story, because the life that will be lost is more precious than leaving the building to cause an havoc in the nearest future.
Well, engineer, let me read out these stats. In July, Building Collapse Prevention Guild, BCPG, stated that there were over 1,000 buildings unfit for human habitation in Lagos Island alone, while 36,000 potential collapsed buildings were waiting to happen across Lagos. Now, what should be done now? What actions should be taken? What lessons do you think we ought to have learned from this going forward?
That will definitely happen in Lagos. You know, in Lagos, we do have a lot of, what should I call that for them? This estate agent that do, they build buildings.
Real estate firms, many of them.
No,
Developers.
not even developers. We have a lot of developers. And you see all these developers, they like cutting corners. Majority of them like cutting corners. They really want to do the right thing. They want, you can see, if the building they even build, if you see the edifice of such a building, it will look somehow. Some at times, you now look at it. Is it an engineer that supervises such building? And what the building they normally construct is like 2-3 story buildings, and there will be no ventilation. You won't see any ventilation. So the developers in Lagos State, since they have identified that some buildings are waiting to be collapsed, their social integrity is faulty, all those buildings, the government should take a proactive action now. They have to send all those people out and demolish. The government that can take over the land, demolish the building and use it for an estate. Because the government will build the right structures there. With the strength and the integrity, everything is going to be there. So instead of waiting for the building to collapse, and we are now seeing a lot of casualties, that is people losing their lives, it is better the government take over the buildings in those areas. I think the government of Lagos has done that some years back. We know the old Morocco. Then I was still young. So everywhere all the buildings here were demolished. And the government take over. So those areas that have been identified, the government can take over as well, so as not to have a lot of casualties when the disaster eventually happens. Or when you will say, "Ugun asotele cooking paroni." So since they know, and some people know their building is faulty, they might have been hearing some sound, but they still kept on staying in such a building. They believe, I don't have where to go. I'll still be mine. But if the disaster now happens, what will happen? They will lose their lives and put their loved one into mourning, which is very, very wrong. So the government should take over such building. That is to be the best. Since they have done that in the past. The government, all those buildings identified, the government should take over the building and demolish and do the right things.
Well, architects, and these days we have many developers, plethora of real estate firms. Do you think there is enough monitoring?
And which monitor them?
There isn't enough monitoring. So this area of development that we have in the last, say, 10, 15 years now, most of them are not in the environment. You see somebody who read history going to real estate, somebody who read Yoruba going to real estate. At the end of the day, what do they do? You see adverts of some firms saying they will give you free design. If you buy land, they will give you free design. How can that happen? As a professional, you are supposed to be paid for your services. How will somebody now say, I'll give you free design, give you free structural design, give you free architectural design? Then there should be a question, I should question such a firm. So most of them are not trained or learned professionals in the built environment. So what do you expect from them? But the problem is, I will totally go back to enforcement that I said the other time. There are rules that guide practice of architecture. There are rules that guide practice of engineering, practice of quantity surveying. But these people just pick 1, 2, 3 students, maybe students on IT or fresh graduates, and pack them together, give them peanuts, and they start working. So this the issue of construction or estate developers coming up, springing up in every corner has to be checked by the government, and then the professional bodies too. What do we do? What are we doing? When we see an essay going on, everyone, like Daniel rightly said, Akonto has a monitoring team, the task force that goes round the wherever you see anything coming up, you are free to go in there, ask questions. Who is the architect in charge of this? Who are the, but you are supposed to have site board, which in most of these estates they are not existent. They are not existent. Because when you have the signpost of that site, the number of the architects will be there, the engineer will be there.
Summary of the project.
Yes, will be there. But you don't see all such, and nobody is saying anything. Look at this Ikoyi case that just happened. On that signpost, what is the architect? Just phone number. Engineers, phone number. No name. So they cannot be identified. We later discovered that the architects who did their design are from Italy. There is a policy, there's an ACON policy that guides, that stipulates action to be taken when you are bringing in an architect from another country. An architect from Nigeria must be involved. So that when things happen, they know who to hold responsible. But nobody's being held responsible. No architect is being held responsible. Because there's no Nigerian architect involved in that design. So that is another point. But when we see an estate going up, and all of us in the built environment or in the building industry can walk into any of these sites, ask questions. When you see things that are not going well, when we inform our appropriate professional bodies and they take action.
Okay, architect, can't we co-opt these artisans, because a lot of them are on the building sites trying to earn a living for themselves, and they don't know the proper way of doing these things professionally anyway. So can't they be co-opted or trained on how to do things the right way? Because a lot of these things are on them.
Well, they can be co-opted, and they are being co-opted. There are trainings organized by different professional bodies for artisans. We do, in architecture we do, surveyors too, they do. We co-opt them, we organize trainings at intervals for these artisans. But how many of them do attend such trainings? They don't. They believe that the little time, they maybe 2 days, 3 days, they are going to spend on that training, they will have earned something. So they prefer to keep on earning their living and living training, forgetting that life is a learning process. There are many things they are supposed to learn in those within 3, 4, or 5, or even 1 week training, but they will not attend. When you advertise for such training, even at no cost, majority of them will not show up.
Maybe they didn't hear about it.
Oh, when we do, we probably
maybe.
But can we even,
maybe they didn't hear about it.
Can we even blame the artisans? I mean, bricklayers, for example, many of them pass through informal learning. I mean, I don't think I've seen an engineer laying bricks. But if there is enough supervision, an engineer, civil engineer should be the one instructing them, okay, this how to do it this way, do it that way. So if there's enough supervision, can we then blame the artisans?
Well, where there is enough supervision, then the artisan cannot be blamed, but the professional. But how many buildings, or how many clients, how many house owners really engage professionals for supervision? They don't, because they don't want to pay. That's the problem. Now, when they see a bricklayer that has been working for like 15, 20 years, they tell you that we have been doing it for so many years, that's how we do it, we know how to do it, blah, blah, like that. Forgetting that every building has its own peculiar problem. Every building, every site has its own peculiar situation, which must be addressed. But they don't know, they believe that just build my house like Baba Sikira, that's all. Some, they don't even think there is need to even have drawings. They just call one big, the house we built for Baba Bosse 5 years ago, that's what I want, and that's all. You see, these bricklayers have piles and piles of drawings in their archive. If they build for you, they keep your drawing. If they build for me, they keep my drawing. On and on like that. So when somebody says he wants a building, he doesn't have drawing, just go, what do you want? 3-bedroom flat, okay. Just go and dust its files, pick one drawing.
Well, for many of these buildings are still standing. When it's called bungalows, for instance.
You see, bungalows, fine. It's easy, everybody can, it's very easy to do. But there are technicalities that are involved. For example, let's say, we can look at this room now. How do you want ventilation to come in? This is one site. If you are on that side opposite this road, how does the ventilation come in? And after we study the site, where the sun comes from, and where it sets. With that, you will be able to determine where the breeze comes from. So from there, you know where to place his windows. Do you understand me now? But that is for site A. For site B across the road, it's a different ball game, because it might not be the same direction. Now, when you know that where the sun comes from in the morning, you know where to place the children's bedroom. You know where to place the living room, where people will be in the evening time. So these are technical areas.
I went to place the kitchen because women complain a lot.
Now, yes, you just place the kitchen anyhow, forgetting that when the woman is coming from the market, she doesn't have to pass through your living room to drop those items. But these people, they don't know all that. All they know is that you need the kitchen. Fine, this is your kitchen, this is your bedroom, this is your living room, and that's all. So anybody can put up anything, but has it been done in the right way? You say, okay, I just my foundation, just dig maybe 300 mm, and you have said you have dug foundation. You don't know what is happening on that side. You don't know what problem exists on that side. But the engineer will tell you this site you have to go so meters deep. But when you call an artisan, he doesn't need any, doesn't just dig whatever and then life goes. So trying to avoid involving professionals is a lot of problem. When there's you see erosion coming in and taking off so many buildings. But even if you are building along drainage paths, the engineer will decide for you, will design for you how to carry it out. You have seen buildings where the foundation is as high as anything. You have seen buildings where the foundations are low. These are studies, as a result of studies by professionals involved. But where that is not existent, then erosion comes, take away your building. Goodbye.
Well,
there's a lot of things.
Yes,
national building code. How effective is this? Because I know years back, and it wasn't applicable in some states. I don't know as of now. So, national building code. What's happening? How effective? How strong is that code?
I want to believe most states are adhering to the codes, because you see that most of the states now have a building production agency that was pulled out of the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development. So they've been effecting that. I know that of the states. The building production agency of the state have been working assiduously on that. So they've been ensuring that the building code is strictly adhered to. You see them at different sites. They will not inform you when they are coming. Just see them. Go and stop work. What are you doing here? Stop work. They will stop the work and request for some documents. They might even take some sample if you are working. At the time of their visit, they will take some. So that was why I said most states are now adhering strictly to the building code, because we are learning and we are improving day in, day out. So the building code is being strictly adhered to. So let me just add to what an engineer said. You said some bricklayers have built some houses in the past, and those houses are still standing. Good. We do have some buildings like that are still standing. But in some cases, most of the lands were purchased during the dry season. Then during the rainy season, now start having problems. If before they start the construction of such a building, the professionals have been involved, if the professional will have guided where you want to construct this building, you might have flooding problem in the nearest future. So I will advise you go and get another land somewhere, because there is a distance to the stream course. But in some cases, you build on the drainage path. But if you build on it, there is a way out.
Okay.
You have to provide drainage to intercept the water from you intercept that water. And if the water, the stream path passes through your property, you don't have to block it. That means if you still want to build there, if it is a drainage parada, you provide drainage within your property and cover it so that the water will be able to flow through to its final outfall. So a lot of things are involved.
All right. Your last word, architect. What should Nigerians do now to avoid building collapse?
Well, what we should do is to consult professionals whenever we want to do any building, no matter how small.
Okay.
Even if it's one room.
All right.
The best is for us to consult professionals.
Okay. Engineer.
So to avoid that, the person that did the structural design shouldn't be the consultant that will supervise the building. Okay. You can't design something and still be supervising. So it should be a joint effort. Right. So the structural engineer will be there, another person a neutral person should be the consultant that will supervise that. Then they should adhere strictly to the building codes.
All right.
And the design code, everything that was designed. If they will abide by that strictly and we use the right professionals, the issue of building collapse is going to be drastically minimized in our country.
Gentlemen, we want to thank you so very much for coming on the program this morning. Thank you for giving your professional advice on building in Nigeria. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
And that will be all on the segment of the building collapse and way forward here in Ogtv. Where we'll come back, the second segment of our discussion segment will come on, and we'll have another guest in the studio to look at what we are bringing for you. Until then, let's step aside a little bit.